Hello. I'm Masha Korpacheva, and welcome to another episode of In the Mood for California. This podcast is a soulful journey through Los Angeles, its neighborhoods, architecture, hidden histories, creativity, and the remarkable people who give this city its spirit. Today we are heading to Atwater Village to meet Daniel Rotem, whose music has taken him around the world while remaining deeply rooted in this creative corner of Los Angeles.
I think one of my favorite things is how lovely it is to walk around. There's so many trees and a lot of greenery, and I enjoy that. I enjoy feeling like I can step out of my home and take a long walk and feel both comfortable and safe, and just feeling the nature close by. Of course, the LA River is very close too, so walking around there, seeing all sorts of water birds and birds in general, I love that sort of connection to nature. Yeah, it's a really pleasant space to be in. It's a pleasant environment to go back and create in my own space. I love Atwater. It's been feeling really good.
Every neighborhood has a story, but some neighborhoods don't simply preserve history, they continue living it. Atwater Village is one of those rare places. Long before Los Angeles became a city of freeways and film studios, this land was part of Rancho San Rafael, a 36,000-acre Spanish land grant awarded in 1784 to José María Verdugo, a Spanish soldier who had arrived in Alta California with the early Spanish expeditions. Back then, there were no streets or sidewalks, only rolling hills, grazing cattle, and the Los Angeles River, whose seasonal floods nourished the fertile land that still makes this neighborhood unusually green today. The next chapter began in 1868 when businessman William C.B. Richardson purchased about 700 acres from the Verdugo family and renamed the property Rancho Santa Eulalia. As Los Angeles slowly expanded, Richardson saw an opportunity. In 1902, he subdivided the land into residential lots, and the area closest to the river became known simply as Atwater. Quite literally, the neighborhood at the water. The word village wouldn't officially be added until 1986, but the feeling of a village had been here from the very beginning. A year later, construction began on an electric railway that would forever change the neighborhood. By 1904, streetcars were carrying passengers between Atwater, Glendale, and downtown Los Angeles. The line later became part of the famous Pacific Electric red car system. Imagine riding that trolley through orchards, farms, and open fields, watching Los Angeles slowly grow around you. It was a quieter city then, connected not by freeways, but by streetcars. One of the things I love most about Atwater is that it never lost its architectural soul. During the 1920s and 1930s, teachers, craftsmen, artists, and young families built Spanish colonial revival homes, charming California bungalows, Tudor cottages, and minimal traditional houses beneath newly planted sycamore trees. While so many Los Angeles neighborhoods were later redeveloped, Atwater was largely spared. Today, it has one of the largest collections of surviving pre-1939 buildings in Los Angeles County. Walking these streets doesn't feel like visiting a historic district. It feels like stepping into a neighborhood that simply never forgot who it was. Just around the corner stands one of my favorite places in all of Los Angeles, the Tam O'Shanter, which opened on June 26, 1922. Designed by Hollywood art director Harry Oliver, its whimsical storybook architecture feels as though it belongs in a fairy tale. Walt Disney was a regular here, often sharing meals with his animators at what is now known as Table 31. Whenever I walk through its cozy dining rooms, I can't help but imagine the conversations that filled the air during the early days of animation, when imagination seemed limitless and Los Angeles itself still felt like a frontier for dreamers. Another landmark that tells the story of Atwater is the beautiful Glendale Hyperion Bridge. Before it existed, a wooden bridge connected the neighborhood to the rest of the city, but in 1927, devastating floods swept that bridge away. Rather than rebuilding another wooden crossing, the city commissioned engineer Merrill Butler to design a permanent concrete arch bridge. It opened in 1929, becoming not only a vital connection across the Los Angeles River, but one of the most elegant bridges in Los Angeles. For decades, automobiles, pedestrians, and Pacific Electric red cars crossed here every day, linking neighborhoods long before the freeway era reshaped the city. And then there is the river itself. One of the things that makes Atwater so unique is its location along the Glendale Narrows, one of the few stretches of the Los Angeles River where the natural riverbed still remains beneath the water. Because the groundwater lies so close to the surface here, engineers could never fully pave this section in concrete. It is a reminder that beneath all the asphalt and ambition, Los Angeles is still a river city. Perhaps that's what moves me most about Atwater Village. Its history isn't preserved behind glass or tucked away inside museums. It lives in the shade of century-old trees, in neighborhood cafes where people still greet each other by name, in homes that have watched generations come and go, and along streets that still invite you to slow down. In a city that is constantly reinventing itself, Atwater Village offers something increasingly rare: continuity. It reminds us that progress doesn't always mean leaving the past behind. Sometimes the most beautiful places are the ones that remember where they come from and gently invite us to remember too. And here we are. Welcome to Atwater Village. I'm so delighted to have Daniel Rotem with me today, a listener who plays. Daniel Rotem is a saxophonist, composer, arranger, producer, and educator. Raised by the Mediterranean Sea, Daniel discovered jazz as a teenager and was captivated by its freedom of expression. A graduate of the Berklee College of Music and the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz, he has performed and recorded with jazz legends including Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Stevie Wonder, Dianne Reeves, and many others. His career has taken him to renowned festivals and iconic venues such as the Hollywood Bowl, Lincoln Center, and the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. An award-winning composer, he has released 6 albums, written the score for the film Mentally Ill, and on his latest album, Wave Nature, performs every instrument himself. Daniel is also a dedicated educator, having taught at California Institute of the Arts, University of Southern California, Stanford Jazz Workshop, and other leading institutions. He is a Yamaha artist and is also endorsed by Gottsu and D'Addario Woodwinds. Please check out his website at www.danielrotem.com. And today, Daniel will share his connection to Atwater Village and explore how place shapes creativity, how a neighborhood known for its independent spirit, walkable streets, and vibrant artistic community can become both a home and a source of inspiration. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, Maria, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, you did mention to me that you love how our great days,
Mm,
affect your mood for the better, for you being a
yeah.
musician, a composer.
Okay.
So you've been
Sure.
enjoying a June gloom in LA, huh?
Oh, I love the great days. I love the cloudiness. I'm always joking with friends. Sometimes people ask you, how are you doing? Or, and I like to say as a joke that I'm waiting for the rain. I love the
Oh.
rain. Yeah, so this kind of cloudy gray is very promising. I'm waiting for maybe a few drops will fall, but I suspect that it will get a little warmer later today.
Yes, yes. And interestingly, Los Angeles is often associated in people's minds with a lot of sunshine and palms, but then
Sure.
we do get a lot of gray and rainy days too.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it, with the sort of desert climate where you have during the summer such warm days, but then the early mornings and the evenings can get so cool. The spectrum can be so wide within the day. Yeah, but of course, LA is often affiliated with the sunshine and the warmth, and that's a beautiful part of it too.
Yes, yes. Though I think creative people like you get a lot of inspiration from,
Mm.
gloomy days, right?
Sure, sure. Often. I mean, I just like the cooler climate. I feel I enjoy it. I like going outside. I prefer to be a little cold than a little hot, in general. Yeah,
Yes. Okay, I see that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
well, Daniel, you live in a very interesting, very artistic neighborhood of Los Angeles,
Mm,
which is called
mm,
Atwater Village. And
yeah.
this neighborhood feels very deeply human in a
Mm,
city that is constantly reinventing itself. So when you
mm,
walk its streets, sit in a
mm,
cafe, or simply come home, what does Atwater give you that Los Angeles as a whole doesn't?
mm. It's a good question. Yeah, I've been living in Atwater for almost 2 years now. I think one of my favorite things is how lovely it is to walk around. There's so many trees and a lot of greenery, and I enjoy that. I enjoy feeling like I can step out of my home and take a long walk and feel both comfortable and safe, and yeah, just feeling the nature close by. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, the LA River is very close too, so walking around there, seeing all sorts of water birds and birds in general. I love that sort of connection to nature. Um, yeah, it's a really pleasant space to be in. It's a pleasant environment to go back and create in my own space. Um, yeah, I love Atwater. It's been feeling really good. I think it's part of LA. I think that's one of the magical things about living in LA. I'm sure you feel it and recognize it too. The the sort of real wide spectrum of environments
Mm-hmm.
and neighborhoods and intermingling of cultures, both if you look at cuisine or places that you can go and experience art or music. LA is so rich in that way, and it's also very spread out, which to people who don't live here, I can imagine it would be very hard to get a good experience of LA in a short period of time because there's so much to see and it's so different. It's so
Mm-hmm.
varied. So in that sense, I feel like Atwater to me feels like a very good home base because I love the nature and I love walking around. I love the trees. But then, yeah, I also love driving around, going to other places. I grew up by the water. I grew up by the sea, the Mediterranean Sea in Israel, and I love the ocean. If a couple weeks go by and I don't get to go breathe in the air by the water, I feel it in my
Mm-hmm.
body. And so I think to that extent, the diversity within LA is also powerful. So of course, Atwater feels good to me. That's where I'm based day to day. But it's the proximity to all these other environments that make this place special. It sort of informs it. Yeah, I like it here.
Yes, yes. And where do you draw your inspiration? Is it about a place for you? Is it about a
Mm,
certain mood?
mm.
Do you prefer to be at home when you think about your new composition?
Mm, sure. I think it really varies and changes a lot. And one of the things I realized earlier on in my journey, learning about myself, learning about music, is that I don't want to rely on inspiration coming to visit me. I like to go search for it, and I like to be able to, generate. Um, be creative even without a particular sort of stroke of something um kind of pulling it out of me,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we often affiliate when we talk about inspiration. But I look for and find inspiration in many different things. It could be a conversation with a friend. It could be listening to recorded music. It could be listening to live music. I derive a lot of inspiration from reading books, and yeah, nature. Nature is very big for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Just observing, looking at the leaves move in the wind, or, the waves at the ocean, at the beach. All of it feeds into the creative space. Of course, the news, it's not always just good things that sort of, generate the feeling of wanting to create. Sometimes it can be feelings that are loaded, difficult, the challenges in life. It's all part of the big picture of creation.
Yes, yes. And interestingly, the way you were describing being proactive about, receiving inspiration, you
Hmm.
usually say about yourself that you're a listener that plays. Do you think it's related to how you find your inspiration, that you need to, you know, really be focused and to listen, and then you will receive this spark?
Uh, yeah, I think it's a lifelong journey for me. But yeah, the sentence comes from something that one of my mentors told me many years ago as I was preparing for a musical audition. And the teacher mentor is Hal Crook, who's an amazing trombone player and composer. Was a teacher at Berklee College of Music for many years, and he kind of said something along the lines of "be a listener that plays," and it felt so fitting to
Mhm.
what I was always trying to do, to what I always kind of the way that I found myself even involved in musical situations. That yeah, I feel like it crystallized over time. I realized that that's really what I do and how I view, I think it transcends music. It's not just about music. It's about being human. And so
Mhm.
often we meet people, and people talk, they have something that they want to share. They have some angle that they're coming from, but I think we can learn and achieve so much more if we listen. And instead of talking first, the impulse to start talking oftentimes prevents us from utilizing the marvels of this lifetime.
Yes.
And in music, specifically within the type of creative music that I write, that I play, that I am a part of, the what comes from jazz, the Black American art form that by now has become a global phenomenon, global endeavor. Um, I think listening is such a powerful way to create. So much of the idea of interaction, of expression, can have so much more weight when it comes from an exchange, a real exchange.
Mhm.
And to me, listening embodies that. Listening encompasses that. If you think of walking outside and you think of um, you're listening to birds in the trees, or you're listening to waves on the shore, or you're listening to a child's laughter. it's the moment of inception, the moment where it becomes music to your ears is when you listen.
Mm-hmm.
And we often think of music. You ask people, what do you do with music? And they say, I play. And that's beautiful. That's another sort of little thing in English that's so nice. The verb for music is playing. It's like a game. You play it. It's supposed to be joyful.
Yes.
But to me, music starts when you listen. It doesn't start when you play. And oftentimes for anybody who is excited about music, whether they play professionally or as a hobby, the spark comes from listening, from hearing
Mm-hmm.
something, from attributing a certain feeling or a certain perception to the sound. And that to me all comes from listening.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Listening is a very deeply creative act for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Daniel, many of your compositions seem to explore ideas that go way beyond music. They're
Mm-hmm.
about human connection, growth, and the future as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
what questions about life are you currently trying to answer through your work?
Mm. That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think the answer might just be more questions, but I think in general the point of art, the point of music, and it relates, of course, to what we just talked about with listening is showing up, is being in the moment. The music that I make is so heavily relying on being in the moment, interacting in the moment. Even in jazz, if you have a certain composition, um, you can play it with the same band, with the same people in the same night, even in two different sets, and it would sound differently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think sometimes that's something that to people who don't necessarily have a good association with jazz or creative music, they kind of look at it and they think, oh, they're just trying to make it different. But that that's maybe a more basic interpretation of what's going on. On a deeper level, being present means that you're showing up for the moment. And the moment, the interaction, the presence, the breath, it shapes how the music comes together. And it could be the same topic. It's like having a conversation about the same topic. We can talk about lupins. Lupins is one of my favorite flowers. We can talk about lupins with a group of people, and then an hour and a half later talk about it again, approaching it from a different angle. It could turn into a very different conversation. And so the music sort of applies the same logic, the same environment. As far as specific questions, I think it always comes and goes. I think there's the big questions at the heart of it all, of purpose in this lifetime. How can we leave this place better for the people who will come after us? What more can I do to generate more opportunities for my peers, for my community? All of those things are at the center of creation for me, but it's also kind of finding and learning about more, either concepts or feelings. One of the recent projects that I've been working with, it's called Yugen. I might be mispronouncing. It's a word in Japanese. It's an aesthetic concept. It comes from Buddhism and Zen, and the idea of something being too mysterious for words, too beautiful, too like fleeting beauty,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the early philosophers that wrote about this talked about how that feeling of Yugen is when you watch geese fly into the clouds. You see them and all their beauty flying and disappearing. It's that sense of the fleeting beauty, the the sort of magical, melancholy of something that's beautiful that is bound to disappear. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that has inspired a project that I've been writing for and working on that I hope will become a record that I'll release at some point in the near future. I'm working on kind of writing more for that. I love writing, so whether it's for whether it's to answer specific questions or just answer my longing to create, I write a lot of music, and so sometimes I funnel it through a concept like Yugen, something like that that inspires me. But again, it's something that I search for, you know. So if I decide on something like that, I take myself out there and I sit. There are a few places that I enjoy going to. I sit on this one hill. There's a kind of worn out bench that not a lot of people get to, and I just watch the clouds go by, and I watch the birds, and you know, I connect to the feelings of whatever I'm thinking about or wondering about or curious about. Oftentimes, I'm also listening to music, so I'm getting sort of this few avenues of creative juices and inspiration, and yeah. So I think the questions both constantly change and also stay the same at the core. It's again connecting to the listening. It's just as if you're sitting in front of a river and you see the water flowing, and you know the essence remains the same. This water making its way through the river, through the canal, but every drop and every second and every moment is specific, and yet the water stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so in that sense, the questions, the motivation around creation is both stationary and constantly moving, evolving, flowing.
Yes, yes. Well, the way you were talking about it, it also reminded me of the Japanese philosophy, komarebi,
Hmm.
because when earlier you were
Mm.
talking about looking at the leaves
Hmm.
as you walk along the streets in Atwater village,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
this beautiful sunlight playing with
Hmm.
the leaves, and
Hmm. Hmm.
the way you are always present during your
Hmm.
performances, the way I personally experience your
Hmm.
presence
Hmm.
when you perform, uh, it really has this incredible depth to
Hmm.
it. And I think, as you described the river and how, it's always changes, but it always continues flowing,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
humans, we're the percentage of water in us is
Hmm.
incredible. We don't even realize that we are mostly water, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we are constantly changing, but we're not noticing it. And maybe um, one of the purposes that we may subconsciously have in life is adjusting our own presence as we are changing ourselves so that we can be more and more present
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
new us that we're becoming every minute.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful way to look at it. Um, yeah. There's our tendency to try and find some sort of a common aspect or an explanation. There are certain things that we don't really know how to fully explain or describe in words, or you know, the the fact that there's no definitive purpose or answer does not take away from the beauty and potential of indulging with a question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that lies at the core of so much of what we do as humans, whether it's creatively or, you know, even people who work in things that are not creative
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I think everybody possesses creativity to some extent, whether
Yes.
it's more active and kind of drawn upon, or whether it's more dormant and kind of tuned out. There's creativity in that too, to go to the same place every day and sit in front of a computer or work with clients or whatever you do, to the point where you kind of have to think more in a focused manner. There's creativity in that. That
Yes.
takes a lot of discipline and a lot of focus. And um, I think the that sits at the center of our existence as humans. We're trying to figure it out, and we know that there's nothing to figure out because it is exactly as it is. But that doesn't prevent us from giving it a go.
Very true. Very, very true. Well, Danielle, you have shared the stage with giants like Herbie Hancock and Wayne
Mm,
Shorter, among many
mhm,
others.
mhm.
Beyond the music that they played, what did being around them teach you about the kind of human being an artist should aspire to become?
Mm. That's a beautiful question. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to have gotten to spend time on and off the bandstand with a lot of heroes of mine, and you can even tell we've been talking for about 25 minutes at this point, and we spoke so little about the nuts and bolts of music. Right. I mean, I mentioned one project that I am writing for and working with, but we spoke so little of music, and that to me is represented by a lot of what I learned and received and sort of internalized spending time with people like Herbie and Wayne and so many others. Yeah, I think there's no separation between our humanity and, for me, music, but for other people, whatever they do, we bring ourselves into everything that we do, and we bring everything we do into ourselves. So it's almost like a mirror, a
Mm-hmm.
mirror looking at a mirror. And, that's the funny thing about a mirror. You don't, what would somebody else see in the mirror? We never really, it's such a funny way to think of, the eye can't see itself, the finger can't touch itself. Um, but I think some of the depth of showing up, the potential for true creativity, the idea of ego not being part of the creative process once it's performed, are all things that I learned from playing with those people. I mean, playing with Herbie, I'll never forget getting to both be on stage. Once the music began, there was no more separation. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like we were playing with this master of the music. It felt like we were playing together. We were making music together. We were all equal. And I think that's something that I always appreciated about jazz in particular, is that at the highest level, the potential for creation is so vast, and it doesn't rely on one person. It's not a dictatorship. It's much closer to a democracy where
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a voice that's equally important. Everybody is equally responsible for the music, and it's not always like that. There's plenty of really incredible musicians who have more sort of attached approach to the music. This is my music. It should sound exactly like this, or this moment should be exactly like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing too. But I think my experience playing with some of the people that I had the good fortune to play with, like Herbie, like Wayne, is that there's less of that attachment. It's more about showing up, being present, and doing something together. And
Mm-hmm.
and the potential of that togetherness becomes so much more significant when you don't try to enforce anything within it, or place it in a box. No, this is about me. It's not. It's about all of us and none of us, and the music transcends all of our individual lives.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, the music lives on, the music stays, the music continues to resonate. Um, yeah, so I'd say, especially those two artists that you mentioned, um, to me, their music was and is their humanity. And in that sense, the one is the other. The kindness, I remember playing with Herbie, and after the show, so many people approach him to say hello, to interact with him. And I was so inspired seeing how attentive he was to everybody, and how kind he was to everybody, and patient. And, that's something that we can often overlook. You finish doing something and all you want to do is get something to eat or relax or have a bit of quietude. But in a situation like that, the investment in the music, the investment in the humane part of the music making and sharing and experiencing becomes part of it too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yes, very
I think,
powerful.
yeah, at this time, I think that would be my answer.
Wow, wow. That is very
Mm,
special because,
mm,
I always see creative people, artists, as those people who are making this effort to distill human
mm,
emotions, to
mhm,
transform emotions into something beautiful, to make sense of emotions. And the
mhm,
way you were just talking about Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter, like the way they
mhm,
showed up, as musicians,
mhm,
sounded as if they were able to achieve this kind of transcendence when there is no you and I, there is this one unity,
right.
this presence of human
Mhm,
soul, because
mhm,
we're all somehow trying sometimes to break, through our bodies, because we're always feeling we're separate, and like everything
yeah.
we do is just we're trying to find this unification. And in life, probably this unity is possible when you transcend this emotion to such an extent that you sort of like remove your own boundary, and then people feel invited in, and then
Mhm,
you feel there is this one human soul, one consciousness, and that
mhm,
makes everyone belong there.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to remember that we're all human at the end of the day, and everybody has a journey to go through and things to learn. The learning never stops. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that I felt very strongly coming from these masters, the sort of joy and um, childlike curiosity around music. I got to work with both Herbie and Wayne through being a member of back then it was called the Thelonious Monk Institute. Now it's called the Herbie Hancock Institute, but it's a very special fellowship program that has been based for the last few years at UCLA, but it wandered around a bit before that. And one of the highlights of that experience was getting to spend more time with Herbie and Wayne. And, that feels unreal to even say it. We're talking about it. And to me, those were my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I used to sit for hours and listen to the music and read as much as I could about them. And then to get to spend time with them, to have a conversation with them about life, of course, is such a special thing. But we played a show at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was the band that was put together for the program, the program band, 7 people together for 2 years, and we had Wayne and Herbie play with us, and they could have easily relied heavily on playing all of their music. They've written so much music, they've done so much in their lives. They could have easily resorted to that, but instead they also picked a couple of compositions by members of the band. And one of these compositions is something that I wrote that I recorded for a couple of my albums. It's a song I call "Who Is It?" But I remember the first time that we played it for Wayne, and Wayne looked at me and smiled and said afterwards, "Yeah, I can hear the desert in this," which
Mm.
is such a sweet sort of thoughtful thing to kind of connect through, and for masters like Herbie and Wayne to choose to play music, my music or any of our music is such a sign for the sort of never-ending quest for newness in it, for
Yes.
for new directions. And so I'm saying that all in response to the last thing that you said. That's so beautiful. And also it's important to leave grace because we're all on a journey, and we're all evolving, ever growing, ever changing.
Yes.
And there's so much more to learn.
Yes, yes, that must have felt so special to
Yeah.
be seen through your own
Yeah.
music.
Right, right, absolutely. I mean, it always feels like that,
Mm-hmm.
to a certain degree. Of course, Wayne and Herbie are legends of the music that we're talking about, jazz and American music and Black American music. But I think it always feels like that to a certain extent for me. The notion that people that I respect, admire, love will take the time to play music that I
Mm-hmm.
write. It's very significant, and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if it's, somebody like Herbie and Wayne or a student, that sends me an email and says, "Hey, I just learned this song off of your album. I'm wondering if I could see a chart because I am not sure if I learned it accurately." It's
Yes.
equally moving. Um, because it's part of what we do. It's part of the idea of offering something and finding a way to connect with other people around it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very thankful for any opportunity. And I'm playing a show coming up on July 4th, and I'm playing with a very special band with Jeff Parker, an incredible guitar player and composer, and really a pillar of this creative music, and Joshua White and Dark Olis and Mark Ferber. And yeah, it's such a privilege to get to share music the way that
Yes.
we, all of us as musicians, get to share things, whether it's with more preparation in the form of rehearsals, whatnot, or less. The fact that we all speak the same language and then show up and have these conversations, and we might have very different dialects and how we
Mm-hmm.
speak the musical language and different preferences. Some people like to talk in very long sentences, some prefer very short, concise, communications. But each with their own dialects, we come together and we share something based on the mutual um, understanding of the parameters within which we're creating, and also speaking the same language. So the potential for conversation can go many different ways. That's how special to me. Always
Yes.
been.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Daniel, imagine that it is
Hmm.
20 years from now and
Hmm.
you're listening back to the body of work that you have created, all of the emotions, memories, or questions that you have, written into music. What would make you feel that you truly expressed what you came here to express?
Mm. Well, hopefully in 20 years, I'm still listening more to other people than I am listening to myself, and to other people's works more than I'm listening just to mine. But I think, for one thing, I hope that wherever life's journey takes me, that I manage to continue to create. I think the notion of having a body of work, of recording, continuing to record and writing for new people and new instrumentations and new combinations of people, to look back and see that I'm doing that whilst also still being immersed in that. That would feel good to me. I wouldn't want it to feel like something that's finished.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that if we talk about this again in 20 years, I'm in the middle of working on 10 different things, and I've managed to continue to create opportunities for people to share music together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an interesting thing in arts and in music. I can speak more to music specifically, but these days, with social media and the notion of kind of breaking through, which existed in the past too, but it had a very different shape and form. Now, the the beauty is that everybody it's much easier to create on some level. It's much easier to produce something and share it with the world than it used to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, not to mention before that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the beautiful side of it, but the other side to it is that people become attached to these ideas of success being, your music making you famous, your music, the idea of success in music is so kind of detached. And to me, success in music, success in art is the art itself, is the music itself. That's what we're going for. We're going for the creation. So if you're a musician, if you're an artist and you're writing and you're playing and you're doing things that are exciting to you, that kind of keep you moving, that keep you moving past what is familiar for you, that's success. That's a beautiful thing,
Yes.
And so, yeah, I hope that I can continue to stay engaged. I hope that in 20 years we talk about other people's music, other artists that I'm listening to. I probably won't be listening to my stuff, but hopefully I'm still writing, I mean, I listen
Yes.
when I write, I listen when I play to myself. Obviously, I think that's a very important thing for us, for musicians. Listening, it's ego to the other side if we say, we're not, I don't like anything that I do. That's ego pointing the other direction. I will listen to myself. I do listen to myself every time I take the saxophone out of the case and I play, and I look for the ways that I can enhance and improve my ability to express myself and connect to the music and show up more. Yeah, but in 20 years, I hope that I'm just as excited as I am now about a bunch of new music coming out by a bunch of different artists, and that I'm writing and working on new stuff, and yeah, constantly looking for more ways to do a little better for our world, for our communities, for life.
Yes. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for this wonderful, insightful conversation. And
Thank you, Maria.
I'm wishing you to continue to stay present as we always experience you during your performances and in
Thank
your
you.
life. And
Thank you, Maria.
we'll continue listening to you as you continue listening to yourself and to us. And
Yes.
we'll continue co-creating life as it
Yes.
comes. Well, thank you,
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes. Thank you so much, Maria. Well,
Until next
pleasure.
time, until next
Yes.
performance.
Yes, absolutely. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for tuning in to Experience Atwater Village with my special guest, Daniel Rotem. If you enjoy my podcast In the Mood for California, please sign up for future episodes at your preferred platform, and please leave your feedback. I really appreciate your time and support. You can also follow me on Instagram at In the Mood for California, and check out my website www.inthemoodforcalifornia.com. And I'm so looking forward to our next adventure.